Look, there's your ball again. Tribe of Names, Simon here. And today we're asking the question on Monday Muse, how do you go about writing a good song? Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this in one episode. Consider this part one. Tribe of Names, Simon speaking. I'm a professional musician who has spent the past 35 years working in and sometimes around the music business, writing and performing music. On this channel we provide creative tips and tricks for the musician and songwriter in you. Now, as I mentioned while I was out and about walking, when I refer to writing a good song, what I'm actually talking about is writing a song which pleases you. Additionally, we spoke a few weeks back about writer's block. Now, we talked about when songwriting goes wrong in that episode. And so in today's episode, I'd like to talk about what happens when songwriting goes right. And we're going to be talking not necessarily about the technical aspects here. We will get to that in another episode. I'm speaking more directly to the creative process. When it comes to using equipment, I tend to visualize my equipment as tools, as avenues, basically, which I can wander down. And the very first guitar that I ever got, the very first electric guitar that I ever got, is this one. This is my Chinese-made Squier Stratocaster. Now, obviously, what's happened over the years is that I've gradually replaced absolutely everything on it, or almost everything. In fact, I think the only thing that's left on this guitar, which is actually the original, is the body, and I think the bridge. Oh, and that knob as well is original. So basically the bridge, the body and that little knob is the only thing that pretty much is left on from the original guitar. And the reason why I make mention about this guitar is it's incredibly comfortable for me to sit down and play. And I have a couple of guitars like that. In fact, I have a very good acoustic which I picked up in Denmark Street in London around about the same time as I picked up the electric guitar. And the reason why I make mention of this guitar is because I had a very interesting encounter with it when I was with my friend and co-writer Robert Ramsey, who has worked with me on many projects over the years. And I remember picking up this Stratocaster and playing it in the shop, and it cost £99. It was a very, very cheap guitar, and I was thinking, should I buy this or should I not? And Rob asked a question which has always stuck with me, actually. He said, are there songs in it? And that really set my mind going. If really at the end of the day, when you're buying new equipment, and let's face it, if you're a musician, you're always wanting to buy new equipment, but when you are specifically looking for something to write on, ask yourself, are there songs in that instrument? And guitars and keyboards really, in an abstract way, should have songs inside them. They're things you can draw, that allow you to draw something out from you. And when it comes to drawing things out, there's a very other interesting element of this, which is whether or not you draw something out from inside yourself or whether or not you're making stuff up just off the top of your head. Both are very useful ways of utilizing your own creativity. And to give you a good example, with regards to making up a fantasy, I wrote an album with a bunch of friends of mine back in the UK called The Big Red Spark. We were in a band called Tiny Fish, and that was entirely a confection of the mind, I suppose you can call it. It was entirely made up, a story about a guy that creates a doomsday machine, and how it comes to affect the entire world. It's a fascinating story, and it was something which I developed alongside Robert Ramsey, my co-writer. On the other side of it, I did draw a lot from personal experiences and the experiences of friends for another album I wrote, which was called Rise Up, Forgotten, Return Destroyed, by a project called Shineback. And that was much more of a sort of a personal venture through some of my own experiences and specifically one of my friends' experiences. And I used a lot of personal memories from my own life and from a friend of mine's life for that one. But it just goes to show that there is no wrong way to the creative process. You can use just about everything, anything and everything that you feel comfortable using in order to get a song created. With regards to reasons to write, now some people do it because they want to be famous, some people do it because they want to be a great musician. I know my brother Jem Godfrey in Frost, one of the things I always remember him as a small child, he absolutely loved learning new techniques and getting better. It was his driving force as a keyboard player. I've never seen anybody so focused as my brother when he was first starting to write as a keyboard player. He just wanted to be better and better and better technically. For me, it goes completely the opposite direction. I'm not, and I often say this actually, I'm much more Van Morrison than Van Halen in this respect. It is something which I'm fascinated by the songwriting by the songwriting mechanisms and how we come to put songs together. I like the mechanics of it. I like the structure of songs, and I study that. Interestingly enough, one of the things that I found over many years of songwriting is if I don't write songs, I become a little bit unhinged. It's a little bit like anything that you love to do. If you're taken away from it for a while, you get fidgety, you get antsy, you want to get back to it, and it's something which is very central to me. It's after 35 years basically of writing songs, it's pretty much who I am now as a songwriter. This is what I do. And to round this video out, I'm going to give you 5 points which I think are the most important, for me certainly crucial elements which keep me songwriting after all of these years and carry on making me love this game. And the first one is find an instrument that inspires you. Now, it could be a keyboard, it could be a guitar, it could be a sampler, a flute, your voice, whatever it is. Find that instrument that serves as a bridge between your intellect and your imagination and the outside world. Once you find that instrument, trust me, get to know it well. It will serve you incredibly well. For me, it's been guitars. I think it's probably my main instrument, although I do play a lot of other instruments. Not as well as I'd like, but I do. But guitar really has been the one thing that's spoken to me over these years, and having a couple of really good guitars, and I'm not talking expensive guitars, but like good guitars that work for you, or instruments that work for you. That's an important thing to have. The second point is try to locate a place in your house or somewhere that you feel comfortable making music in. I mean, it could be a spare room or a basement or an attic or just a corner of a living room which you can claim and call your own for those moments where you want to be creative. I've had a couple of studios over the years and they've all been immensely creative places, both here and back in the UK, and I'm very grateful for those little sort of, I don't know what you call them, creative refuges. It does work. Try and find that place and it will serve you well. Third one, and this might be a bit hard for some people to hear, but you do not need lots of gear. Now that's probably going against the credo of many musicians out there, and some of you are probably throwing their tea at the screen right now and furiously typing. And if you do, tell me in the comments below. I'm always interested to hear your opinions about this, but I think you need a couple of items of gear that you know incredibly well. Like, for example, I have my guitars, but especially on my computer. I have a lot of plugins. I bought a lot of plugins over the years, but I found that really at the end of the day, I have a handful of DAW plugins which I use on an everyday basis, and I know those plugins like the back of my hand. For me, like the Logic Pro EQ and the compressor, and one of my other favourite ones is the Isotope Mastering Suite plugin. I know that like the back of my hand. These are the things which I use on almost every session, and they've become old friends of mine really. And my my one bit of advice is, I mean, you probably won't listen to me when I say this because, you know, let's face it, advertising people want you to buy their gear. But the bottom line does come down to that you need to sort of centre yourself around a few items of musical equipment, recording equipment, writing equipment that you know incredibly well to a much deeper extent than some of the others. I mean, don't get me wrong, buying plugins is fun. I have a whole load. But I do know that there's only a few go-to instruments and plugins which I use on a daily basis. Those are your friends. Count on them. The fourth point is, try not to turn music into a win-lose game. I've met and worked with many musicians who have felt that they have failed because they haven't achieved some lofty ideal or goal which they set out, sometimes unrealistically, when they were younger. I did it myself. When they didn't achieve that goal or aim, they felt like they had lost. And one of the things that I will tell you right now is music is not a win-lose game. You should do music for music's sake. If you're doing it to become famous, fair enough. But be prepared that the fact that the vast majority of us out there are not going to become megastars. And as a result, if you feel that you're going to become a megastar and you don't, you've turned it into a win-lose game. I'm just saying, love it for the music, because if you don't eventually end up on the front cover of Rolling Stone or Q magazine or whatever it is, you'll still love what you do and you'll still value yourself as a person and a musician. And I've known a couple of other musicians actually in my time who have found success when they eventually gave up trying to get that kind of success. And I think that's because on those albums when they went, screw it. I mean, I remember Rush often said, the band Rush often said when it came to 2112, they thought that this was going to be their last album, so they just threw it out all on the field. And that was the album that made them successful. When they realised that they were just doing it to please themselves, that was the moment when they started pleasing others. And the final point, which is related to the last point, is never forget to locate the joy in all of this. Now, we all have days in the office when it's crap. I've been in plenty of sessions in my time where I've been looking at the clock furtively and thinking, oh God, please let me go home, this is horrible. And the same with any kind of recording session. But the bottom line here is that you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, but you always got to understand that somewhere along the line you've got to be enjoying this. Because if you're not enjoying this, as I said, you turn it into a win-lose game. You can do. And it really is important to remember that this is fun, goddammit. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. My name is Simon Godfrey, Tribe of Names. I hope you're doing well. And until we speak again, have a good rest of the week. Goodbye.